You've been enjoying the stories of my paranormal experiences. I enjoy telling them. Don't enjoy experiencing them though. But it made my skin crawl. Made me shout in fear. Oftentimes run. And other times, they weren't really scary at all. Not all ghosts are bad. Just misunderstood. I have a feeling they prefer to be left alone. This one experience I had took place in the hospital when I first started practicing respiratory therapy. I was maybe 6 months into my practice. I'm standing outside of a patient's room who had just recently passed away. And I was documenting the passing in her chart. I had to write my own narrative. As I was writing, I felt a little tug on my lab coat. Looked around expecting one of the nurses to be standing behind me. No one was there. I peeked in the patient's room one more time, and I felt another tug on the sleeve of my coat. It didn't scare me. I was in awe. I had a feeling that it was the patient trying to get my attention. So I just said aloud, "You have passed. Follow the light." And I didn't feel any more tugs on my coat. I felt a feeling of peace. Another experience, again, was in a hospital. I was working in an intensive care unit. I like working in the intensive care unit. I like the challenge of it. And I saw a woman walk by wearing a blue bathrobe. And I thought, this is strange. I don't recall seeing her. It was a small hospital. The intensive care unit only had 10 beds. I saw her as plain as day, as you would see a normal living person, meaning I didn't see through her. And I asked the charge nurse if she was aware of a patient walking around without assistance wearing a blue bathrobe. And she smiled and said, "Oh, that's the blue lady. She's been here for a long time." Nobody really knew much about her, but they knew she was dead. Some of the older nurses couldn't even recall her being a patient there. But we knew that she was a spirit. She'd be there and then she'd be gone. There are a lot of paranormal events that take place in hospitals, nursing homes. Unfortunately, death has to take place. I was down in the basement of another hospital getting supplies to restock our department. So I was loading up a cart with boxes of oxygen tubing, ventilator tubing, things that we needed. I always had in mind that at one time the basement was a morgue and autopsies were often performed there. And looking around the basement, to an untrained eye, it just looked like an ordinary basement. But I saw fixtures of surgical lighting, drains in the floor, marks on the wall where big stainless steel sinks were, an area where the refrigerators were, where bodies were stored. Never bothered me going down there. A lot of people are afraid to go down there. I had no problem with it. So I'm oftentimes asked to go down to the basement. One day, this day, I should say, when I was collecting the supplies, I felt a sharp pain in my left side, like I was stabbed. I reached down, didn't feel any blood. There were no holes in my uniform. And I started filling up the cart again. And I felt another poke to the side, same thing. I realized what was going on. In a stern but polite tone, I said, "You better knock it off, or we will have you exorcised." After I said that, the ghost must have been really upset with me. The lights flickered, and one of the boxes fell on the floor. I wasn't scared. I finished loading up the cart, got into the elevator. and made my way back to the department. I never said a word to anybody about this. They don't like to talk about it. And at the same hospital, when I first started working there, he's sitting at the nurse's station, doing my paperwork, working on the computer. Feel a tap on my shoulder. Looked around, nobody was around, close enough to me to tap me on the shoulder. And as I spun my chair around to get up, I catch a quick glimpse of a woman standing over by our crash cart. A crash cart, for the lay people, is a cart with a defibrillator and all the medications we need to try to resuscitate a person and bring them back to life. We refer to that as a patient crashing. I would see this person, this spirit, by that crash cart on an occasion. It was a woman wearing a gown, a hospital gown, looking sad, a pretty lady. She would disappear as soon as our eyes met. And the back hallway near my department, main office, I would see shadows walking up and down that hallway. I would just see the legs of people who have once lived in the mortal realm. I shared that experience with the assistant director. Superstitious lady she is. She got scared. He says, "You have a gift." She said, "Don't tell me anything more." Oh, yes, I am superstitious as well. But I don't let my superstitions rule my life. I cope with them. And for my last story, took place many years ago. I was 3. I was living in Galena, Ohio. And behind our house, there was a nice wooded area that I enjoyed playing in. Some of the trees had strong vines hanging from them. I would swing on those vines, yelling like Tarzan. There was a raspberry bush that I would pick fresh raspberries from. One day when I was out gathering raspberries, I hear the sound of a drum beat, like an Indian tom-tom. And it got louder, and I walked to try to find it, thinking it was one of my friends out playing. I followed the sound but found nothing. The tom-tom got louder and I saw nothing. Only heard the sound of the tom-tom. The birds had stopped chirping. I got scared and ran away. dropping my bag of raspberries. Ran home and told my mom. She thought I was just making up stories, as little boys do. She told my dad. And being a quarter Sioux Indian, he was interested in the story. And we went to the area where I had dropped the raspberries. And I picked the bag back up because I loved fresh homemade raspberry jam. And we searched that area and he found some arrowheads. He said, "Yes, you probably did hear a tom-tom, Byron." Indians were all over this area at one point of time before the settlers came. So, I hope you enjoyed these stories. Not as perilous as the others. And I want to thank you all for helping me reach my goal of 100 subscribers. I have exceeded that goal. I will be announcing the winner tomorrow. I will hold a drawing, so be expecting that. I will be giving away one of two things, but you have to watch for that. I already made the announcement of what those two prizes will be. Until then, have a good night. Dang, I need to shave.